There's a quiet kind of danger in a name appearing on an entry list, the kind that doesn't make headlines immediately but lingers like a question waiting to be answered. When Alex Eala's name surfaced for the WTA Parma Ladies Open just weeks before the French Open, it didn't explode across the tennis world, but for those paying attention, it felt like the beginning of something far more deliberate than a routine tournament entry. Because this isn't just about playing matches. It's about timing, identity, and a young player stepping into a moment that could redefine how she's seen on clay. Eala's journey has never followed the loudest path. She hasn't been the player constantly surrounded by hype cycles or dramatic expectations, yet her development has unfolded with a kind of precision that suggests something carefully constructed behind the scenes. The decision to enter Parma is a signal, not just of ambition, but of strategy. Clay is not forgiving, and it doesn't reward impatience. It exposes flaws, stretches rallies into mental battles, and demands a level of discipline that separates promise from reality. For a player like Eala, whose game has often been associated with fluid shot-making and composure beyond her years, this surface becomes a proving ground in the purest sense. What makes this moment compelling is the timing. The French Open looms large, casting a shadow over every clay court event leading up to it. Players aren't just competing for titles, they're fine-tuning patterns, testing endurance, and searching for confidence in conditions that will mirror the biggest stage in Paris. By choosing Parma, Eala is stepping into a space where pressure exists without the overwhelming glare of a Grand Slam. It's a calculated environment, competitive enough to challenge her, yet controlled enough to experiment. And experimentation is where her growth becomes fascinating. Eala's left-handed game offers natural advantages on clay, particularly with angles that can drag opponents off the court. But clay demands more than geometry. It demands patience in construction, the ability to reset points repeatedly, and a willingness to embrace long exchanges without rushing for winners. This is where her tactical evolution will be tested. Can she extend rallies without losing her identity? Can she balance aggression with restraint in a way that turns her natural flair into sustained pressure? The Parma courts will likely reveal subtle adjustments. Watch how she builds points on the backhand side, especially when forced into defensive positions. Clay often targets players who rely too heavily on early striking, and Eala will need to show that she can absorb pace and redirect it with purpose. Her footwork becomes just as important as her shot selection. Sliding into position, recovering efficiently, and maintaining balance through extended rallies, these are not just technical elements, they're indicators of readiness for the next level. There's also the mental layer, which often defines outcomes more than any forehand or serve. Entering a tournament like Parma before a Grand Slam can create a unique kind of pressure. Every match becomes a rehearsal, every mistake feels amplified because it carries implications beyond the immediate result. For a young player, managing that dual focus, competing in the present while preparing for the future, is a challenge that can either sharpen instincts or create hesitation. Eala's composure has been one of her defining traits, but composure on clay is a different test. Points don't end quickly, momentum shifts gradually, and frustration can build in ways that aren't always visible. The question isn't whether she can stay calm, but whether she can stay engaged through the grind. That's where matches are often decided, not in spectacular winners, but in the quiet persistence of constructing one more rally, forcing one more error, refusing to fade. The field in Parma will add another layer to this narrative. WTA 125 events often feature a mix of rising talents and experienced players looking to regain rhythm. That combination creates unpredictable dynamics. Younger players bring energy and fearlessness, while seasoned competitors understand how to navigate clay with efficiency and patience. For Eala, this means every round could present a different kind of puzzle. One match might demand resilience against a counterpuncher who thrives on long rallies, while another could require controlled aggression against a player who takes time away. Adapting between those styles is where her tactical awareness will be under scrutiny. Tennis at this level is rarely about executing a single game plan, it's about adjusting in real time. If her opponent neutralizes her angles, can she transition into a more direct approach? If rallies extend beyond comfort, can she find ways to shorten points without forcing errors? These are the decisions that define progress, and Parma offers a stage where those decisions carry meaningful consequences. Beyond the technical and tactical aspects, there's a broader narrative unfolding. Eala represents a new wave of players who are reshaping expectations, not through sudden breakthroughs, but through steady, intentional growth. Her presence in Parma is part of that arc. It's a reminder that development in tennis is rarely linear. It involves moments of recalibration, tournaments that serve as stepping stones rather than endpoints, and choices that may not attract immediate attention but carry long-term significance. There's also an element of identity at play. As players transition from promising prospects to established competitors, they face the challenge of defining their game in a way that holds up under pressure. For Eala, clay could become a defining surface, but only if she can translate her strengths into consistent results. That requires more than talent. It requires clarity, knowing when to attack, when to defend, and how to impose her style without becoming predictable. The serve, often overlooked in discussions about clay, will be another key factor. On slower surfaces, it's not just about power but about placement and variation. Eala's ability to use her serve to set up the first shot could determine how effectively she controls points. Wide serves that open the court, followed by controlled aggression, can create opportunities even on clay. But consistency is crucial. Double faults or passive serving can quickly shift momentum, especially against opponents who thrive on extended rallies. Return games, too, will play a significant role. Clay rewards players who can neutralize serves and immediately engage in rallies. Eala's anticipation and positioning will be tested, particularly against players who mix spins and speeds. Reading the serve, taking the ball early when possible, and maintaining depth on returns, these are subtle elements that can influence entire matches. As the tournament progresses, physical endurance becomes increasingly important. Clay matches can stretch longer, with points demanding more movement and recovery. For Eala, managing energy levels across multiple rounds will be essential. It's not just about fitness, but about efficiency, knowing when to conserve energy and when to push. This balance often separates players who make deep runs from those who fade after strong starts. The psychological aspect of momentum cannot be ignored either. A few strong wins in Parma could create a ripple effect, boosting confidence ahead of the French Open. Confidence on clay is particularly valuable because it influences decision-making. Players who trust their game are more willing to construct points patiently, to wait for the right moment rather than forcing outcomes. If Eala finds that rhythm, it could transform not just her performance in Parma, but her approach to the larger stage in Paris. Yet, there's always the possibility of setbacks. Tennis rarely follows a script, and even the most carefully planned schedules can be disrupted by unexpected results. A tough loss in Parma wouldn't necessarily diminish her trajectory, but it would test her resilience. How she processes such moments, whether she extracts lessons or allows doubt to creep in, will shape her readiness for the challenges ahead. What makes this phase of her career particularly intriguing is the balance between expectation and freedom. Eala is no longer an unknown quantity, but she's also not burdened by the intense scrutiny faced by top-ranked players. This middle ground can be an advantage. It allows her to compete with purpose without the weight of overwhelming pressure. Parma becomes a space where she can refine her game while still embracing the unpredictability that comes with growth. There's a quiet confidence in players who understand their process, and Eala seems to be building that understanding step by step. Her entry into this tournament is not a statement of arrival, but a continuation of a journey that values preparation as much as performance. Each match, each rally, each adjustment contributes to a larger picture that extends beyond a single event. As the clay season unfolds, narratives will shift rapidly. Breakthroughs will emerge, favorites will stumble, and new contenders will challenge established hierarchies. Within that shifting landscape, Eala's presence in Parma is a reminder that progress often happens away from the spotlight. It's in these moments on smaller courts, in tightly contested matches, that players develop the qualities needed to succeed on bigger stages. The anticipation surrounding her participation is not built on guarantees, but on possibilities. What version of her game will appear on these courts? How will she respond to the unique demands of clay? Can she translate potential into tangible results at this level? These questions don't require immediate answers, but they add layers to every match she plays. In many ways, Parma represents a crossroads. Not a dramatic turning point, but a subtle shift where preparation meets opportunity. It's a chance for Eala to test herself in conditions that mirror the challenges ahead, to refine her approach, and to build momentum in a season that demands both patience and ambition. And perhaps that's what makes this moment so compelling. It's not defined by headlines or declarations, but by the quiet accumulation of effort. A name on an entry list becomes a story in motion, shaped by decisions, performances, and the willingness to embrace the complexities of growth. For Alex Eala, Parma is more than just another tournament. It's a step into a narrative that continues to evolve, one rally at a time, carrying with it the promise of something greater just beyond the horizon.